Welcome to the TOCA Backstage podcast. Join TOCA's Executive Director, Chris Wolf, in conversations with the artists and people behind the scenes of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation's performances and events.
Hi, this is Chris Wolf, the Executive Director of the Torrance Cultural Arts Foundation. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of TOCA Backstage. Today it was my pleasure to speak with Brian Owens of the show Brian Owens and Soul, which will be at the Armstrong Theatre November 6th at 8 p.m. A truly amazing talent, heck of a nice guy, and I think this is pretty inspiring conversation. So please take a listen. Make sure you get your tickets November 6th, 8 p.m., Brian Owens and Soul. I think there's a guarantee that you're going to leave uplifted, excited, and have your soul renewed. So it's my pleasure to be speaking with Brian Owens, who's coming to the Armstrong Theatre with the show Brian Owens and Soul. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time.
I love that title, Brian Owens and Soul.
I do too. I love it. Yeah, that is the title, isn't it?
I guess it is now. I don't know. I think, was it supposed to be something else? But you know, I actually like that. I like that, Brian Owens and Soul.
Well, that's what I was given, so that's what I've been promoting.
Oh, perfect. Then it's out there. It's out there. It doesn't matter. It's great. You're good. You're good.
So, Brian, I'm fascinated because I try not to do a lot of research on the people I talk to, other than their shows that we bring in, their artistry, of course. But I just looked on. I just Googled you and found out that you were in an Air Force band. Is that correct?
Yes. In my former life. Yeah, when I was 21, actually 9/11, I joined up. Like I was shipping out that day on 9/11, and I was going into the band. So I was in the Air Force band for 3 years active. And then I joined a guard band, and I was in a guard band for 9 years.
Wow. What was the impetus to go into the military?
I mean, I can tell you some, great story of my, patriotism at the time of being 21 years old. The truth is like at the time I was dating someone and we were both artists, and I had the opportunity to like have the quote unquote steady, the steady career. And I was young enough at the time where I was like, well, this would be great for me. There was an Air Force band that was located in my hometown of Belleville, Illinois. At Scott Air Force Base. So I was like, I can go home, be with my family. It's a good career, for right now, for somebody my age, and have a little stability. And then literally like 2 months after I joined, like we ended up breaking up. So I think it was God just, providentially guiding me down the path that he wanted me to go down. But I loved it. Like I didn't get out because I didn't like what I was doing. But when you're like with anything, when you have a career, if you want to do things outside of that, and for me, musically and creatively, I didn't have the time because, I belong to the military. So, yeah.
Do you miss it?
I've been out so long right now that like, no, like I have a beard. Like, I don't know. I don't have to shave. You know what I'm saying? Like, It's the little things, Chris. It's the little things, What I think that the one thing that I knew every time that I performed in the military is that the people who I was performing for, the level of meaning in what I was doing was more than entertainment. And especially when I deployed. So I deployed for the first and only time in 2011. And that experience is probably like musically the most impactful musical and creative arts experience of my life, because we were literally playing for people who hadn't been home in, 10 months. And when you play a song that they connect with, it's a lot deeper than just, I like that song. And, it was fun and emotional, and our band went viral while we were over there. So that was crazy. It's like in the early, years of viral. 10 years ago. And I very much enjoyed the experience while I was in it, so much so that I don't look back and regret it and say, man, I wish I could go back. Like it was great for the time and for where I was. And now I'm grateful that I get to, have the freedom to do some other stuff.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, talking about how the music that you were playing for the guys overseas really sort of had an impact on them. And whereas I sort of, for those that don't know, we had you at the Armstrong with your Marvin Gaye show.
Yeah.
And that music, I think, is another thing that is sort of a touchstone for a lot of people, where it's like they hear a Marvin Gaye song and they just go back.
Yeah.
Is that sort of why you picked Marvin Gaye? Why Marvin Gaye? I mean, there's so many great soul singers out there.
I mean, I kind of fell into it. I was doing a series in St. Louis called the Master Series. And I ended up, I did Sam Cooke, Marvin Gaye, Otis Redding, Ray Charles, Johnny Cash, Al Green. And the whole point of it was, it was me kind of like getting my PhD in soul pedagogy, right? It was me really digging in and researching this like I was a PhD student, and then going out and performing what I had learned about these individuals vocally, technically. Marvin is the one that stuck. And when I say stuck, it stuck to my voice. Like, doing Curtis Mayfield, I can I'll say this, back up. Doing Otis Redding, like I can't sing like Otis Redding all the time. Like I can do a show and that almost killed me. Like the energy and the it was fun. Al Green, I got some Al Green in my voice. When I did Marvin, in the studying of Marvin, it was at a point in my life where my voice was still trying to find itself, and something happened. And it was like, oh shoot. Like when I did that show, it was more like channeling. It was weird. It was like Marvin had gotten so much into my chords that in my trying to interpret it, like I couldn't interpret it in a way that wasn't Marvin Gaye. Yeah. It's hard to explain, man. It's like, it's like going beyond the level of like impersonating. And so that's why the Marvin show, that like when I would, and here's the thing, like I ended up going on the road doing the Marvin show because a booker reached out to me because they saw that I did it here. I was never going to do it outside of St. Louis. And somebody reached out and said, well, would you be willing to do it? And I was like, well, like I'm an original artist. Like I write, and, that's the brand that I'm trying to build out. But I ended up doing it, and I had a lot of fun. Doing it. It was,
Well, it was a phenomenal show. And I think if nothing else, it's a great way to get people to know you as an artist.
Yeah.
And then come back and say, okay, well, I saw what he did with Marvin. Now let's see what he does by himself.
Yeah.
And it's, it's funny because there are so many tribute acts and almost impersonators. But your show wasn't like that. It was kind of like, okay, here I am, and I'm going to sing Marvin for you. And that was great. We had a tribute guy come out, and I interviewed him, and he was just like, no, that's what I do. I do his music. That's all I want to do. I don't write. I don't play. I do this artist. That's it.
That's cool, man.
Well,
but I'm glad you guys enjoy it. Because here's the thing, Chris, like when we and if you remember, like when I do the Marvin show, I'm pretty sure it's like me and a guitar trio. First of all, like, so it's not like a 12-piece band with all the horns and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that configuration in and of itself, it's going to be different. But I wanted to do Marvin as if Marvin would be doing Marvin if Marvin were still here. I didn't want to like have every song sound like the record necessarily, but I figured I sound enough like Marvin that I can have the best of all worlds, right? I can have those moments where I deep dive into just sounding like him, and the moments where I'm just going to sing Marvin because this is like a really good song, and it is a part of the American song book, just like any jazz song. And if I sang a jazz song that Frank Sinatra sang, I don't have to sing it like Frank Sinatra or like Nat Cole. I can just sing the song and interpret the song, because the song itself is what has a lot of the merit and the value in it. And like taking that approach is what allowed us to do it for as long as we did it, and have fun, because every show is different.
How long did you tour that show?
Man, I think we started touring that show in like maybe 16, and we toured it till about like 19. So like 3 years. 3 years.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then right about the end, and that's when I did my Johnny Cash record, and then I did my Solar Cash and my Solar Ferguson albums, and I was like, yeah, man, like this is the aesthetic of Marvin has definitely trained me in that, that R&B, old school R&B soul, but I'm an Americana soul artist. That's really what I am. And so I'm like really wanting to just like deep dive into embracing that.
So the show that you're coming to Torrance with next month, is that what can people hope to expect when they come see it?
A lot of soul.
Thankfully, because that's in the title.
Yeah, it's in the title, baby. I think one, a really good show, right? But you're gonna hear original music, you're gonna hear some Johnny Cash music, you're gonna hear some covers, some really nice covers. But it's all within the context of like, it's just a really good, soulful show. I want people to leave nourished. That's my biggest thing. I want you to leave out of that, theater, uplifted and feeling empowered and feeling like, yeah, life can be good, even when stuff's kind of jacked up. That's the hope of every show. And I think the way that we do that is the same way all of our predecessors have done it. You have the stuff that's yours. You have the stuff, something borrowed, something blue, something old, something new. It's like that's what the show is, but it's all soulful. And I don't know. And I feel like it's one of the first times now when I go out on the road and I'm actually doing this stuff, like people are going to actually get to hear me sing, like hear the full range of like what I enjoy doing vocally and the stories that I like to tell as an interpreter of music. I'm excited. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to it. And the other thing I learned, that you have an organization that you're a part of, Life Arts Inc.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, one of the many things that I said I would never do, and I'll never own it. I'll never have a nonprofit. No one owns a nonprofit. I'll never, I was all about using, music and to help nonprofits. I never really wanted one. And then in 2014, with the events that happened in Ferguson with Mike Brown, living here, I was like, looking at the work that we were doing, and it just over the next 6 months after that, like it just, all this work started to materialize, like providentially through God, like all this stuff started to materialize to the point where we were like, we have to start a nonprofit. And so we started the nonprofit in 2015, officially on the books 2016. And now I don't even run it anymore. My cousin moved here. He's getting his doctorate in social leadership, and he has a doctorate in education. So he's leading out the Life Arts Inc., the nonprofit side. And then I lead out the for-profit side, which is now called Life Creative Group. And the umbrella that all of it's under is called the Life Creative. So our ecosystem has a for-profit and a nonprofit. I do the movies and the music and developing young producers and creators, but all through the lens of them being leaders. He handles, all of like the more missional side of like the education and curriculum using the creative arts. Because we really believe in the power of the creative arts to like change community, like in every aspect, like not just like socially or emotionally, but like economically, spiritually. And so the ecosystem that we're building out is geared towards that. Matter of fact, even in this very show, like there'll be people performing with me who are products of the ecosystem.
Oh, cool.
So that's always been fun.
So it's interesting you mentioned the ability of the arts to really sort of transform or transform a city, or actually like give a heart or soul to a city.
Yeah.
with the pandemic, it's been sort of sad to see so many arts organizations go under. Did did the pandemic have an effect on, I mean, obviously it had an effect on your touring schedule, but on
Yeah.
your nonprofit?
I mean, we grew
Really?
because the work that we do is really centric on how the arts affect people and build up people, and not necessarily how people build up the arts. So, like, I didn't do tours. I ended up doing a movie. It's like still being able to provide creative outlets, doing a concert film last year, like providing creative outlets for the people in our lives, in ways that connect people to meaningful, high quality experiences. And that's kind of what we are, like, in our city. Like, we're just becoming like this, like, facilitator. We're like a glue. We're like the primer. We're the kills paint that you put on the wall before you put the regular paint on.
Yeah.
And it's interesting being in that position, because, once you put the layer of paint over the primer, you forget that the primer is there, but you really appreciate the way that the paint looks. And that's kind of what we want to be. We're just like trying to be that primer, or, as I say, the roux in the gumbo. Once you make the gumbo, you forget about the roux. But if you don't have roux and gumbo, it ain't gumbo. Like, it's soup. It's like rice soup. So, like, I think last year we really discovered our purpose in being facilitators of things. And so for us, there was growth. There was growth because of that.
That's awesome. You said you did a movie.
Yeah.
Are you also an actor or screenwriter?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm an actor. So I directed and co-wrote a movie
Cool.
that was then for PB and was on PBS last year. And we're doing another one this year that's going to be on PBS. So I'm getting more into, because ultimately I'm a storyteller, whether I walk out on a stage with a band and do it, or I sit behind a camera and facilitate a narrative that's happening that will be on the screen. Either way, I just feel like I'm a storyteller. And the music is inevitably the soundtrack of these stories. So yeah, like, I've gotten into, like, just more like directing, producing from that side, producing some of my younger artists, facilitating that for them. And I like it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love performing. Like, that's my first love. But I've probably been quoted as saying that, if for some reason God saw fit for me to have a different platform that wasn't me going out on the stage, I'd be fine with that. Like, I could live with that, because I have these other creative outlets. And that's what I really discovered last year. That's what I really discovered. Because what I found is that, like, as much as I love the stage, I didn't miss it as much as I thought I would have. But it's because I had these other things. So it's like I was still doing stuff. It just I wasn't able to do it live in front of people. But that also makes, like, the coming to California all the more special now for me, because it's like I don't do it a ton. So when I get to do it now, it's like, I mean, we always leave everything out on the stage, but it's really, like, it's very special.
Well, and I'm curious. I mean, you're sort of fortunate that you have these outlets, because I know, like, some musicians don't have that other creative side. That's to just focus on their music. Do you have a preference of which you do? I mean, you said you'd be okay if you didn't sing or perform anymore, but I'm curious if there's a preference to what you do.
I think I'm finding a good prioritization and balance of it all, which helps. Yeah, I mean, I'm really, like, I love the lack of pressure that exists behind a camera. Like, I just, like, or doing a filming, you're doing a taping. I mean, going out on the stage in a live moment, like, it's pretty intense. And it's a good intense, and I love it. but at the same time, again, like I said, it's like, I don't find it like, for me, like I have to, like, if I don't, for some reason, if I couldn't, like, my life would lack a certain meaning. And I think because my life is like, the purpose in my life is comes from a transcendent source, comes from God. It's like, as long as I get to tell the story, how I tell the story, I'm at the point now. Now, if you would have asked me that 10 years ago, it probably would have been different.
Yeah.
But now, like, I'm older, like, I don't look it. but like, I'm like, I'm 41. I have 8 kids. I have, like, church responsibilities and obligations, and people, young people that I mentor. Being home is a pretty important foundational part of the things that I do in my everyday life. Being a director and a producer are things that allow me to not have to sacrifice those things. And then, like I say, then I can go out on the road and I can do some dates, and, they be special.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be the guy anymore where it's like, I'll go out and I'll do, like, I'm going to do 50, 60, 70 dates. Like, I don't know that I'll do that, but I'm still going to go on the road. But right now I feel like I'm going on the road as a foundation layer for this next generation of young folks that I'm bringing up, so that their brains can supersede mine.
And quite frankly, I don't know how artists do that. I mean, I've seen touring artists who are just like, that's all they do is they're on the road constantly, and it's like, don't you miss being home?
And that's, I couldn't do it. Like, I go away for 3 days and I'm ready to be back home. I'm like, okay, this is great, but my wife, my bed, my kids, just being around, like, you don't realize how much you miss. And like, having, like, small kids, I'm like, you miss a lot in 3 days.
Yeah.
Much less 3 weeks, 3 months. like I'm like, no, going out and, like, doing enough and getting it and sharing with people in that way, and then coming back home. I love the country schedule. The traditional country schedule is basically you tour Wednesday through Sunday or Wednesday through Saturday, so that you're home, late Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're home. So just adopting those kinds of things, because they're more conducive to, like, what my life is now, which my life does not revolve around me being a touring performer. Yeah. My life revolves around the stuff that's going to be there when I'm not doing this stuff anymore. And, I need people to take care of me when I get older. So I need to be, I got to make that investment now to make sure they're not like, well, I don't want to be the dad and the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon,
Well, I like that you quoted Harry Chapin. I'm a big fan of his.
Oh, well, you'll enjoy this. So the last album that I did, Love Came Down, the bass player is his son-in-law. So you can
really?
just take, yeah. His name's Stephen Crump. Yep.
Wow. So one of the things that our foundation does, besides present performances like yours, and we do a full season and some community shows, we also try to encourage and mentor young people coming up. That's not our sole responsibility, so I'm sure we don't have the sort of the bandwidth that you do, but thinking of kids wanting to pursue performing as a career, what words of wisdom would you share to them?
Learn the business, all of it. Learn the business and diversify, meaning most of the people that kids look at as being successful performers, that's only about 25% of who that person is. It's like, they perform, but they're doing other things as well. And just an understanding of the other aspects of the business beyond the stage, because that's what really makes it work. You got, all of the, the business that goes behind it, the marketing, the creative and the development. So we're actually developing a curriculum here it's called Creators for Life, where we have the Art of series. And it's like the art of business, the art of story, the art of community, the art of branding. And it's taking our young people through this whole idea of like, you have three aspects to who you are as a creative entity. You have your brand identity, you have your sales, and you have your services. And you have to identify those things and understand how they fit in your creative journey. If you just have your brand identity, which we all know, anybody in the creative space knows, your brand identity is the hardest thing to monetize right away, because people don't know who you are. You have to build it up so that people actually want to buy into it. Your sales and your services are the things that you can do right away. Case in point, the Marvin Gaye Show is not my brand identity. The Marvin Gaye Show is my sales and services, right? Yeah. My brand identity is Brian Owens and Soul. Brian Owens, the Americana soul artist. So using the sales and services of the Marvin Gaye Show, then I was able to invest in my brand identity. That's how I was able to pay for Solar Ferguson. That's how I was able to pay for Solar Cash. And now I can come back to Torrance and be me.
Wow, I've been asking that question for like a couple of years, and quite frankly, I think that was the best answer I've ever heard.
Woohoo! Yeah,
because it is so true. I often say, I mean, I've had conversations with young artists, and it's kind of like, well, what do we do, Chris? And I say, well, what's your goal? And it's like, oh, I want to win it. We want to win a Grammy. It's like, it's not a goal. That's, I mean. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna play that on repeat for people who ask me that from now on.
Well, and the truth is like what they call like vanity metrics, like award. That's a vanity metric, and in the field that we're in, it's highly subjective. I mean, there are people who have gotten nominated from Grammys who did not submit themselves. That's just the truth. Yeah. There are people who like the Academy was like, yo, this needs to be in there. So like it's subjective. It's made up of people who are part of an industry that's driven by numbers and driven by, and it's not to say that there aren't situations where people win because they're supposed to win, of course, but you need to, I tell you, all my young artists, I'm like, look, man, what are your sales and your services? Young lady, what are your sales and your services? Because that's what you can live on until your brand identity is strong enough where it is monetizing. Then, and so hopefully what they get to see with me is that this is how that process looks. And it takes time.
Yeah.
Make them watch the Motown documentary. That's what you really should do. Make them watch Hitsville. The arguably the number one group to ever come out of Motown was who?
I don't know.
Supremes.
Okay.
When people think Supremes, they think Polish and Diana Ross and her becoming an actress. Dude, it took so long for them to get a hit. They had to go through so much development. And the song that they got was not even for them. Like, it was written for somebody else, and that person turned it down. And the writer, Lamont Dozier, was like, hey, I got a song for y'all. Yeah, just like, and so like just understanding that like it's more to it than just, oh, I want a Grammy or I want a lot of money. And it's like, well, you don't have to be a musician to get that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm really excited to have you back. And I can't thank you enough for your time. So I encourage people to make sure they get tickets to Brian Owens and Soul coming up at the Armstrong Theatre. Any last exciting words of wisdom to share?
Come to the show. You won't regret it.
There you go. I like it.
Absolutely. You won't regret it. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll leave lifted and motivated, and it's going to be a good time.
Well, that's one of the things I think I'm looking forward to the most is, I mean, you have like, this year we have ABBA Mania or an ABBA show, and it's like, yeah, you get to relive your teen years, but with your show, it really is building up the soul and making you leave happy, which I think right now everybody needs.
Yes. even the people on the stage. So when you see us, don't forget that we're taking the medicine as we're presenting it. So
Well said. Well, thank you again. I really do appreciate it.
thank you, Chris.